Good job, Max. Good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about Jesse Goes to India and also Jack Mail Institute 101. Something that I have realized is that a lot of folks here may not know what all that Jack Mail stands for. I know a lot of people are new here and everything, so I was wanting to give a brief introduction to Jack Mail. I hope I can do it some justice. Eddie, can I get my clicker? Turn it on the side. There we go. All right, so Jack and Elle Cox was Jack was a preacher who lived in Oklahoma, and his wife Nell. They started going to India, I guess, probably in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s or so. And so they would go there and they'd stay 6 or 8 weeks, and they'd have 1,000 baptisms at a time. But at the same time, Jack realized that they were leaving them with little way to grow spiritually. It reminded me of 1 Corinthians 3 and verse 2. Whereas I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you are not ready for it, and even now you are not ready. So we were leaving the Indian people over there with just milk, with no meat. And so Jack had a dream of a place where native men could be taught, and they could be taught, and they could also go out and teach. Somewhere along the way, he was introduced to Chandrapal. I think most of us here know Chandrapal, and Chandrapal was a translator for Jack and Nell during their trips. So after many prayers and some searching, they found some land right outside of Vijayawada, India, and they built the institute with individual donations from individuals and many small Oklahoma congregations. Jack was a preacher at the Northside Church of Christ, who was the initial sponsor, and then later on they needed some help overseeing, and the Sayre Church of Christ became a sponsor as well, and it became known as the Northside Sayre Training Institute. So building the institute, the trips became easier, but they were still difficult. I'm glad I've not had to experience a lot of this, but Zonell was telling me of a time when her mother Nell was on a train traveling, and the lady a few seats in front of her got sick, and it came back in the window on her. Or when she would stay at hotels where the ants were so big that they would get into the Tupperware containers. And then one time she was awakened during the night and heard a racket, and a rat was crawling off her purse that was hung up on a nail. So fortunately, I've not had to experience any of that, and I appreciate the work that they've done. So even though they spent a lot of time at the Institute teaching the Indian people, they also continued to travel to preach and teach. But at the same time, they saw that there was a need for orphans and widows there to provide food, clothing, and education for the orphans, and also to provide a trade for the women. I got Titus to send me some early pictures of the Institute. You can see it here going up, down the middle left. I can see Chandrapal looking over it as it's being built. Bottom left, you can see how they carry everything on top of their head, carrying the concrete there. That's the first building there. All of them are the first one except for the bottom in the middle. It's actually the second building. The bottom floor is actually the place where they meet for their worship assembly. And then here's a picture of Jack and Nell Cox there in the middle, and with Chandrapal and his family there in the upper left-hand corner. And so just thought those were some neat pictures. So about in the year 2000, the elders here at Leoma, they took the oversight of it, and R.S. Gray was the deacon that was involved in the work. Over the years, many of us have visited, including Jimmy and Fred and Jimmy Blue, Jerry Marcus, Rodney and Willie and Robert Morris and Arliss Gray. Jimmy and Jerry went over and did some drip irrigation classes for them. So I think Jack died in about 2002, and they renamed it in Jack Nail Institute around 05 or 06, I believe. Miss Nail, she's still living in Oklahoma. She drives a little black Volkswagen Bug convertible with the eyelashes on it, I'm understand. So I'd like to get out there and meet her. I know she's going to be a neat lady. So current day, we have a board of trustees. It's got 4 Americans and four Indians. Zonell Rainbow, who is actually Jack and Nail's daughter, is a trustee. Linwood Cockerham, he was associated with the Madison Church in Madison, Alabama, but he now lives in Huntsville. Michael Berry with the Southern Ridge Church in Oklahoma. And then I was recently appointed in Arliss's spot. And then Chandrapal and his son Titus, don't ask me to pronounce that third name there. And then hopefully VJ, a gentleman by the name of VJ that's been associated with the work for many years, will come back on as a trustee. So what are the works? We have a preacher training school. It's a 3-month program and also a 2-year program. An English medium school. This is open to the area around the Institute. I was trying to think how many students they have. It seems like 150 or so, 150, 200. Don't hold me to that. But this is a way that the Institute's name can also get out into the area. They have a printing press, which they do Bibles and songbooks, literature, and they do a calendar every year. They do benevolence through bicycles, sewing machines, and the work with the widows. Within the last couple of years, we had to close down the children's home because it was under the Department of Health and Human Services, and the government was going to make it hard for us to run the boarding school as we should, or the orphans home as we should. But we have found out that through Titus that we can actually open up a boarding school, which will be governed by the Department of Education. So that's something that we worked on while we were there. We got some improvements that need to be made before we can start housing more orphans there. But that's something that we're working on and praying for. So the Indian culture, this is, to me, the biggest difference between us and the India folks. While Elijah was here, I got to learn a lot more about their culture. Of course, it's influenced heavily by the Hindu religion, and they have a caste system. And so the caste system, it's broken down into four separate castes. You got the highest is like the priest. Then you've got the warriors or the soldiers that are the second, and they're at the body. The priests are the brain. The warriors are the body. Then you've got the business owners. They're the thighs. They're the doers, as you can see up there. And then you got the lower caste, which is just your workers and such, and so they're the feet, or kind of towards the feet. But at the very bottom, there's another caste, and that's called the untouchables. That's the caste that Chandrapal belongs to. That's the caste that Elijah belongs to. Within this culture, they're nothing. They have no value at all. I was told, like, if they can still go and get their education, but I was told, like, if a higher caste person got sick and they went to the hospital and like a untouchable was the doctor there at the hospital, they may not even let that untouchable touch them. I mean, it's that bad. So I mean, that's just it's something that I'm thankful to be raised in a Christian culture in America. And that's something we should all be thankful for. You know, it's the culture. It's something that just can't be overcome overnight. But hopefully with us over there preaching and teaching the gospel, it can be. So this is a lot of the Hindu temples. You can see there in the one on the top left. I can see that one from the Institute, standing on the top floor of the Institute, kind of a purple look. The gold one right there, that's the one that towers over Palical, where Elijah lives. You can see it throughout the whole city. I'm not sure how tall it was. And then we actually had to rent a car. The Institute's car had some issues while we were there, so they rented a car. And so you can see the gods on the dashboard, the folks there that the Hindus drive with the gods on their dashboard. And then they got the red dot there, and I forget what that stands for. And then you can see the other two gods there in the picture as well. So February 8th, we leave for India, and we stay through the 17th. Some of the main purposes is last year we transitioned. Chandrapal stepped down as the chairman, as the executive of Jack Nell Institute, and he handed those duties over to Titus. And also we've had some board transition, as I just mentioned. So we had, one of our main purposes is just to make sure all of our legal standing and everything was in good shape. We went through encumbrances and deeds and titles and trusts, just make sure that everything was set up right within the Indian government, but also to make sure that, see how the past years went and to make sure that everything was going well. So everybody's kind of interested in the travel. So I leave Huntsville. Actually, I left my house about 10:30 on February 8th. Went to Dallas to London, London to Hyderabad. So I get to Hyderabad 6 p.m. February 9th, which would have been about 5 o'clock, 5:30, February 10th in India. I don't know if Buddy's here or not, but the funny thing is, I was sitting there for my baggage and my phone rings and it's Brad Slater wanting to talk. So I said, Brad, I'm in India, sorry. But, and then we had another 4 to 5 hour drive to Vijayawada from Hyderabad. So as you see, it's a tiring travel for you. And you're all alone. So I did this on well, someone sent me a Snapchat, and I was in India, all by myself, and on the right side. You know, we're usually on the left side, there I am, and you can see Nate there with his top hat on. He's looking sharp there. So, travel and arrival. You can see Charles and Zonell there, they're sleeping. I know they enjoyed me taking that picture, but that's about the kind of rest that you get on the way over there. Just some pictures going through the customs and the security on the way in. A picture of me with Elijah's sister and his brother. They met me there at the airport. I think I took 4 suitcases full of books for Elijah, and they're tying my luggage on top. You can see some icy area there as I was looking out my plane window. Charles made mention that we should be hitting the coast soon, and Zonell said, Charles, why don't you rephrase that? We didn't want to be hitting the coast. So, you know, so once we land, we get our bags, and we're on the road, and we go to our brother's house there in Hyderabad, which you would think would be pretty close, but it takes about an hour and a half within the same city just to get to a house within the same city. So we did the same thing last year, and they fed us breakfast there. And then they had several of their members come and have a devotional service there with them. The older lady there in the center there, I just thought that was something for her to be sitting in the floor like that. But the faith of these people just to come worship is something else. The bottom right-hand picture is they've got 2 daughters, and that's their bed, and that's where they sleep at. And this is actually one of the nicer homes that you'll be in India as well. So Now, I guess I should mention, Pat asked if I had a burrito or anything on the way over, and I stayed away from the tacos in Chicago. I did take some peanut butter with me, and they got confiscated in Huntsville, so you cannot take peanut butter on the flight with you, so future reference. Here's some Indian wisdom on our way on our trip. Men to the left because women are always right. So that was at a little rest area there as we, halfway between Hyderabad and Vijayawada, that we always stop at. So we get to the hotel, we get checked in. Once we get checked in, it's time to go again. And we travel, I'm not sure how far we travel or how long we travel. It seemed like we traveled an hour outside of Vijayawada to this village here. And you can just hear this, you can see the guy on the microphone there, and you can just hear him for, it seemed like miles. It wasn't miles away, but it was a long ways. But then right next to us, I couldn't see where it was, but there was somebody else on the microphone that was kind of competing with us. So apparently it was another church service going on, but they use these microphones, and that's how folks know that a worship service is going on. But as you see, there was a good crowd there. They always ask us to speak. Linwood did most of the speaking during the time we were there. Yeah, I forgot to put the picture of the squatter there. That's your facilities usually when you're out in these villages. So that's what you got to look forward to when you go. Sunday morning we get up. We always have service there at Jack Nail. The three men on the left, they're actually leading singing there, and I asked them why they have three men leading singing, and that's one way that they train the other ones to lead. They have two or three get up there, and so the one's training the other two. There's Linwood speaking with Chandrapal translating for them during the service. Something that the whole time we were there, we visited 2 to 3 villages a day. And this is something that Titus had set up, and this was very good for Titus because everybody knows Chandrapal, but they didn't know Titus. But it also gave Titus a chance to start to meet the folks and also to translate. But something that was unique is that Titus was raised knowing the Hindi language. In this area, they speak Telugu. So Titus was actually having to go from American, in his mind, he was having to translate from English to Hindi, then to Telugu. But as he went, he got a lot better. But on Sunday after service, we had a fellowship meal there. They actually do their fellowship meals in 2 shifts. That's the first shift there, and once they got done, they roll up the paper and throw it all away, and then the second shift comes in and eats. We also had a service there for Chandrapal, honoring him for his years. We had a present that we brought there with him. I think that was about 50 pounds of rice, they said, that was being cooked right there. It was a big pot. That night, we went to a village to have a worship service that night. And well, actually, this is just several different ones, but the one on the left was that night that we went out to a village. And when I got there was a short older guy, had a long beard, and he walked, as soon as we're pulling up, he walks up to the church and he's bowing down and praising it or whatever. And then as I'm sitting in the building, I'm sitting about right where I am now, and I'm looking out the doors there, and he comes in cussing us, I think, and so I don't know, he had a change of heart sometime during the night, and then after it was over, he was out there with a lighted ball and bouncing it and trying to throw it to us, so he seemed like a lot of fun. Here's just some pictures from around the Institute. Down the top left, that's the Telugu alphabet. If I could say it, I would, but the bottom left is the computer lab that the folks here help support and get funded. Freda got them on the ball on that last year, and it's being used on a daily basis now by both the the school for the kids and also by the preacher training students. And there are some classes, but I always try to catch them in class, but as soon as they see me, they always have to stand up and greet me, so it's always hard to sneak up on them while you're there. So then I was able to spend a day with Elijah there, and everywhere you go, they always put flowers around you, no matter what. And there on the left, I was about to suffocate, and it was getting heavy as well. But it was good to see Elijah. That's his uncle there in the middle. He's got a congregation that he's just started preaching at. They had kind of gotten away from the true word, and so he's getting them back in line with everything. Down on the right side, they had about 2 or 3 of those big posters of my big head everywhere. Angela was telling me earlier that a guy called Elijah after I left and said, "Why you got a WWE fighter there with you?" So, big white guys, they're unusual over there. Especially in the place where Elijah is, it was a totally different feel than what you have in Vigilawada. Here's just some pictures I took from around Elijah's spot. At the top picture, you can kind of see that's the backside of his parents' place where they're building the school at. So this is where they plan to hopefully do some farming and teach some trades to the folks that are there, the students that are there. But then right below it, you can see that's the city. Looking the other way, there's actually a Lions Eye Hospital that's right there beside it. So that was a familiar sight or sign for me there. You can see the cots there, and that's the cafeteria that they've got ready, getting ready for their students. Bottom there's the classroom that's on top of the church building. So that was just one day I spent with Elijah. But like I say, we went to 2 to 3 churches or congregations out in the villages. 2 or 3 of the preachers would actually have more than one congregation. They'd have one here, and then another one might be 10 or 15 miles away. So I always thought that was very neat. But the thing is, they just, you would get there and the building would be empty, and then they would just keep coming, and by the end, there would be standing room only. Timeliness is not something that they're real good at. That's another part of their culture. But at the same time, but that's also the reason for the microphone. When they hear that the words being taught, they come and listen. So while I was there, this is one of the greatest things. I didn't get to experience any of this last year, but we had several baptisms. This was on Sunday night. 3 young girls came up to be baptized, and so we're going out to each village had like a lake that they used to always get their water from. So we go out to the lake there, and Titus he's fully clothed there, and he goes right in the water there. I was trying not to fall in the water because I wasn't sure what was in there, and Rodney's got a snake story from while he was over there, and Rodney, I was thinking about them snakes while I was going around the side of that pond there. So, but actually, while they were baptizing, we've actually got a video, and you can hear Chandrapal talking, and another guy had come up wanting to be baptized, and so you can hear Chandrapal speaking to him, and he was baptized that night as well. I actually got to do a baptism there where Elijah's at. Down the left, their church does have a baptistry. There's another baptism that took place out in the village. While traveling in India, you will see all kinds of things. You see the cows in the road there in the bottom left. You'll meet these tractors coming. You think, okay, that's not too bad. And you get to it, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and then next thing you know, there's another one behind it. Goats being herded. Those girls out on the back of that vehicle, I thought we were going to touch their feet. We got so close to them. Driving and riding in India is definitely a different experience. Top right, that's actually a police officer. Helmets it's against the law not to wear a helmet in India, but as you can see. And then the bottom right's actually an ambulance. So final day, we had breakfast with Titus and his family. You can see Titus and Joycey and the two boys there in the bottom left. Had breakfast with them on our final day there in Vijayawada. They also had a preacher fellowship training while we were there, and so they got some. I took a picture of there during the fellowship, and then also we all got outside and had a group picture taken, and I always have to take a selfie with Chandrapal. That's something I started there. So something that I used to ask, and a lot of people ask, is why India? Why do we want to go over there? Why do we want to, we've got lost people in America, that's true, but we got lost people in India too, and we all know what the Great Commission says, to go make disciples of all nations. But this right here, probably that last day was the most touching to me. Those 4 guys that you see Zonell and I there with, they were all orphans at one that came to the Institute. 3 of them were there for 8 years or longer. If it hadn't been for Jack Nail, there's no telling where those 4 would have been. The other one there, the one with the glasses, he actually had a medical emergency one time while they were visiting there. I don't know if Arliss, was you there when they had to take that? Okay, well that's him right there, the one with the glasses. So you can see he's doing well, but they are all either college educated or they're in college. Just the look on Zonell's face was, she had tears coming down her face, and she said that you cannot tell me that we don't change lives here. I was the one in the yellow there. They said that was Arliss's grandson. I didn't think he favored him much, but apparently Arliss took up with him one time while he was over there. He's actually going to. I think he's already a nurse, and he's gone on to become a doctor, and that's all because of Jack Nail Institute. And something that I've been asking, I used to ask, I said, can they not support themselves in India, or can the preachers that they train not support the Institute? In the U.S., that wouldn't be an issue. We support Rodney and his family, but the preachers there, they're not preaching to make a career out of it. And Rodney, I hope you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, but they're doing it because they know that's what God wants them to do. And they know that people need to be saved. So they're sacrificing any kind of job that they may have. Of course, you got to go back to their culture as well, as I mentioned. But something I was thinking about earlier is maybe these orphans, maybe they will make something, and they can in turn support the Institute on down the road. But the major thing that I get out of the Indian people while I'm visiting, and I say we visit out in the villages where they have very little, is that they're happy. They have nothing, but they're happy. We have so much, and half the time we're not happy. We're always upset. But I think that they're happy because they have Christ. Are we happy because we have Christ? Or are we happy because of the things we have? If we lost the things that we have, would we still be happy because we're in Christ? That's why I had Riley read the scripture on the rich young ruler. So tonight, if you lost it all, would you still have Christ? Would you be saved? If not, come as we stand and sing.